It's been a good while since the last time we visited our favorite kids site where you can buy shirts of actual terrorists, so per half-year tradition, what's going on with Roblox this time? When it comes to Roblox horror, not much has changed since the last time we checked in. We're still waiting for the next Doors content update, we've not really heard any word on anything to do with Rainbow Friends, and Piggy and the Mimic are, well, still Piggy and the Mimic. But one game that we have also covered in the past that has kind of been divorced from this broader topic at large that I also decided to spotlight was, of course, Forgotten Memories. Having played this game back in February still feels very pulverizing. Before really getting back into Roblox, my perception of the relationship between it and Five Nights at Freddy's was just the odd roleplay game you can find here and there, with the animatronic models built way before the prospect of Blender support was even thought of. You know, instead of playing Forgotten Memories or any other FNaF Roblox game today, why don't we just hop on good old animatronic world? Oh wait. Although I jest, I seriously do think it is a marvel for how far we have gone from the style of these old Roblox games to assets and environments beautiful enough to rival games you can find on genuine storefronts. And Forgotten Memories was definitely not exempt from this. Not only being what I believe to be the best looking FNaF game on the site, but also one of the best looking games on Roblox, period. But although we can sit here and gawk at how beautiful the brick textures look on the ruined but still chiseled Markiplier head out front, looks aren't everything. And it certainly felt like Forgotten Memories was using its pretty visuals to somewhat compensate for not the greatest of gameplay. Not only were a ton of ideas borrowed or straight up copied from other fan game devs like Nixon, who had the layout of the Those Nights at Rachel's office and the entire premise of the Ignited animatronics basically taken from him, but the core gameplay also just felt unfair and very repetitive at times. The game was certainly made with multiplayer in mind, but even then, having 4 people man certain stations of the pizzeria, although a really cool concept on paper, was pretty boring and unpredictable in practice. Having this drag out for 5 whole nights on top of a nightmare mode just made all of this feel very repetitive and dull after a while. But although I do have some glaring criticisms of the game, I still can't deny that for the engine it's made on, Forgotten Memories is objectively impressive. Especially when its competition is like fucking get hit by a car simulator. And although I could continue to go more in depth with all my criticisms of the base game, we already have a whole video doing that. So what purpose does any of this serve? Well, nothing, but that's besides the point. Why I bring this up is because these criticisms may not apply to the game anymore, or at least not for the content that we'll be covering today. This is because in the time since we've initially covered Forgotten Memories, the game has gotten a huge content update, adding not 1, but 2 whole new maps for us to explore and endure, with new threats and gameplay mechanics completely separate from what we already knew about this game. So I guess the question on everyone's mind is, with all this new content, is it any good? Well, if this update shares any similarities with the content we initially covered, it's that this question is not quite easy to answer right away. So, without any further delay, I think we should delve right into the new content. I got a pair of buddies just like we did last time, as we sought to see if this new expansion rights the wrongs of the initial release. Or I did, at least. The rest of them were just acting like this.
Dude, it's the Joker.
I didn't see this last time.
It's the Joker.
Oh, I'm going to joke all over you, Batman.
There's no laws against the joking, Batman. Please do not keep this in. It's over.
This is Forgotten Memories, Memory Lane. Just like previously, we start off in the lobby with several little details and things to look at. Now this time, with way more things than before. The most obvious of these changes is the inclusion of the new pizzeria on the map, Bonnie's Memory Lane, which absolutely dwarfs the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza building, with several entrances and exits, and even the detail of cargo trucks being parked behind the pizzeria. The map in general just had a major expansion overall. Right across the street from our 2 pizzerias, we now have this this small factory building that actually works as our lobby screen location. Going west of the pizzeria, we have a lot more space to walk around, with an inaccessible tunnel at the end of the road going over an underpass railroad. You can't really do much over here, but the added entrances to this little plaza buried deep into the woods makes this area look and feel a lot more believable. Although speaking of plazas, we can find a small one just by going a little east of the pizzeria. Not many of them seem to be fully modeled on the inside, but like, what do you expect from a little lobby area like this? What's included here, I believe, is already way more than enough. Like, we literally have functional street lights, like, come on. But a detail I was really impressed by for my initial review of this game was this tunnel right here. Although the tunnel on the other side of the map is inaccessible, this one has always been a little different. Going further down takes you to a cave that allows you to enter into a warehouse, and peering through the corner allows you to see all the animatronics, their mechanics, and other miscellaneous tips that may be useful for your plunge into Freddy's. But since we're not going to Freddy's this time around, a lot of this information isn't nearly as useful. But thankfully, walking through this curtain on the side shows us all of our threats for this run of the game, being the nightmare animatronics. I bring all of this up so I can just simply celebrate how much work has gone into the lobby of this game alone. This is so much extra work to put into a Roblox game of all things, and I will forever be glad that the fruits of these people's labor seems to continue to pay off in many different ways. But after our extensive tour of the new lobby, we have something bigger on our plate to now indulge in. Readying up in the lobby, we prepare for our plunge into the pizzeria. After an admittedly long loading screen, we enter into an elevator where we can buy pre-game items. Wonder where I've seen this before. So if it isn't obvious, Doors has had a major impact on Roblox game structures, and this elevator start screen is one of the most prime examples of that. The items you can buy here range anything from radar scanners, adrenaline pills, a speed unlocking tool where you can open a lock instantly, and even a freaking taser that instead of buying with the in-game cash given to you, you can only purchase with Robux, which I honestly think is pretty lame. Like, buyable revives and stuff I understand for a game of this structure, but selling items that give you a huge direct advantage with real-world money, not even indirectly, seems kinda slimy in my opinion, especially of how limited this item is. Since this is one of the most straightforward differences between this mode and the original Forgotten Memories game, I'll give a rundown on what these do first. The radar scanner is the most expensive item in the game, and can be used to detect how far certain animatronics are from you. I honestly didn't see much of a use in this item because, like, the animatronics are pretty loud, so they can just already make their presence pretty known. But I guess if you can't properly judge how close an enemy may be nearby, this item may be for you. The other item you can buy is one bottle of adrenaline pills. These are also fairly expensive and are only a one-time use. They temporarily increase your speed and can be useful if you're in a pinch, especially with the animatronics still being faster than you can sprint, even in this game mode. The unlocking device is the least expensive out of the bunch and is also a one-time use. This device is honestly really useful at the very start of the game, since Freddy seems to really like to camp this door when you first spawn in. And obviously, the last item is the taser, which has 5 uses and costs 30 Robux per match. I bought this tool a couple of times just to see how useful it would be, and it's honestly not worth it. I'd rather just take a hit from the animatronic than spend 30 Robux per round just to have a chance at saving myself from the animatronics chasing me. Another big difference I noticed in this mode that's different from the main game is the ability to just play as your avatar this time around. I thought the inclusion of different models last time was honestly a really cool and fresh concept, but not everyone shared my same sentiment. But since those characters likely died at the end of the game, we couldn't really bring them back here. So just having your default avatar represent you this time around was definitely the easier and more straightforward choice. The actual objective of this level is for you to go looking around for rooms to lockpick into. If you successfully get into one of these rooms without injuring yourself or being caught by one of the threats, you will typically find one of 3 switches you need to activate and a monitor with a letter on it. These will be very useful later, so make sure you stare at them to mark them down on your screen. Another thing that you need to look out for on the map is these generators too. These power a terminal in the center of the map that is integral for your escape. But of course, there are threats that you need to be looking out for while you're doing all of this. Freddy roams on the west side of the pizzeria, opposite from Bonnie. He is very aggressive and is a constant threat as early as your spawn. You need to do your best to try to get into the rooms to progress with your tasks while avoiding him. And if you do well enough, you'll be able to progress to the east half of the pizzeria where Nightmare Bonnie resides. His AI works about the exact same as Freddy's, being a highly aggressive, all-imposing threat. If you're able to successfully maneuver around both of these guys, you'll eventually have the terminal reveal the puzzle that needs to be done. Above the terminal, there are several different screens with different numbers and colors that correspond to the colors on the monitors we've been finding all throughout the maze. Entering each letter by the number accompanying it allows us to escape. Pretty simple puzzle, and honestly a much more enjoyable experience compared to the original pizzeria when you get your objectives down, especially on solo mode. We now enter down to a lower level of the facility, and the game ends. Just like I think we all expected here, the presentation is top-notch. The core gameplay was also slightly improved too, but I still believe that there is a fundamental problem with how unforgiving the AI is in all of these games. I believe what makes a good chaser enemy in any sort of horror game is not the speed of the enemy, but how the enemy makes you react in your attempts to evade. A good chase should always leave you on your toes, leaving you vulnerable to mistakes as the thing that punishes you if you get caught. This approach works a lot better than just running away with the little speed you have and just praying that there's an innocuous locker at the end of the hallway for you to run into. Just like my previous criticisms last time, if I could change any factor about this game, it would certainly be this. But selling revives and tasers most likely makes you a lot more money in the long run than my opinions on this game, so hey, what do I know? Despite all of this, chasers aren't the only enemy that is present in this mode though. We also now have the introduction of Shadow Bonnie as a threat that we now need to control. His mechanic is a lot more interesting and I believe a lot more fair than Freddy or Bonnie, acting more as an obstacle than a threat. He'll spawn in different areas of the map and will distort your screen the closer you get to him. He's a cool enemy in concept and I honestly didn't have much problems with him. He will only show up very sparsely and I don't think he becomes that big of a problem until we get into the basement. Speaking of which, beating the pizzeria level allows you to delve deeper into this facility, inevitably leading you to the basement. The basement is, well, it's hard to explain. The first thing you'll notice is that the lockpicks are no longer an option you can buy at the start, instead being swapped out with glow sticks that you can use for better navigation. And trust me, if you're playing this, especially on solo, these things are going to be an absolute godsend. They leave markers on the map that trace your steps and have an infinite number of uses. Honestly, a really generous item, and I'd suggest anyone to buy it if they can. Every other item carries over the functions the exact same though. Getting to the bottom of the level, we notice that we have new threats to deal with: Nightmare Chica and Nightmare Foxy. They still function about the same as Freddy and Bonnie, with Chica being slower but in turn slowing you down with her presence, and Foxy being the fastest out of the squad. Shadow Bonnie also appears back in this level, and like I said, he functions the exact same. Our goal down here is to find 3 breakers hidden around the map. Turning them on uses the power to locate 4 different rooms of conveyor belts that you need to put boxes on, with the main goal of building Mr. Hippo. Yeah. Now, something to note about the basement is that this map allows you to have 10 people at a time, so all's to say, it's big. Playing with just 4 people allowed me to beat this in around 30 minutes, but for a second solo playthrough, it took me 80 whole minutes. This map is absolutely dreadful to wander around alone. Even if you know your objective, the locations of the doors, and especially the breakers, are so vague and difficult to pinpoint that even if you feel like you know the exact location of some of these things, you're likely gonna still be searching for a pretty long while. And to top it all off, you're rarely going to even encounter Foxy or Chico because of how huge the map is. This hits the exact opposite balance of the first level, and I honestly think it falls too far into a different extreme. While evading your enemies is so much easier down here due to the size of the level, actually getting your tasks done starts to feel like a chore after a while. And if it weren't for the glow sticks, I'd probably be down here even longer. There's not much else to really say about this level. I think the environment itself is very pretty pretty like always, albeit I do think some areas are a bit too dark, and it makes the already difficult task of finding the breakers you need to get even more difficult for it. Slowly getting every piece of Mr. Hippo attached to his body, you eventually are able to finally flip 4 breakers to activate him. Waking up, he talks to us with what I presume is an AI voice.
Oh man, where am I? Oh, right.
Which is honestly kind of lame. This game has had real voice acting by real people before, and although yeah, it wasn't the best, I still do think it was better than this. I get this character needs to be impersonating an already established character with a voice, but you see with how many visits and in-game purchases there are in this game, surely you guys would have enough money to afford a VA who can do an impression instead. I understand this is probably a big nitpick, and this is certainly a lot more subjective than my other critiques, but I would honestly really like to see them replace this with a genuine voice actor sometime. Even if the delivery isn't as faithful, I still believe this would be better than cloning the voice of some small voice actor without their consent. Anyways, this is the last time he talks, thankfully, and his introduction is about as brief as it gets. Our goal when we encounter Mr. Hippo is to help guide him to the elevator going down to a lower level of the facility. But because of how large the map is, it's a cakewalk, and you're likely not going to encounter anyone on your way there. Getting to the door, a cutscene triggers of Mr. Hippo leading us into the elevator, before swiftly being taken out by Foxy and Chica, his head plummeting down to the lower floor with us. And with that, the level ends. This is clearly not the end for our journey here, but as of right now, level 3 has not been released. But from everything we know about it, it's supposed to be set in an asylum-themed level, with both Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare hunting you down respectfully, which I think will be fairly interesting. The only other thing to really note about these 2 levels are these keypad rooms present in both. I don't think the codes have been officially given out yet, but looking up how to get in, you're greeted with rooms that both give you strange cassette tapes, which both don't have any use right now, and are likely going to be given a purpose in the next update. Overall, are these levels an improvement from what we've experienced back in March? Kinda. Since the gameplay of both modes are so vastly different, it's hard to compare either or. Both of them have strengths present in their presentation, but completely different types of weaknesses as well. I think the gameplay of the maze is certainly more my taste than what we had in the pizzeria, but I do believe it fell flat in areas such as the AI and the map layout and the mission guidance. But it also may have been partially my fault going back to play solos, so I don't know. This game is certainly at its strongest with a group of friends. The communication and teamwork it takes to complete tasks is what I believe is what makes this game the most fun. Or your lobby could be doing this the whole time.
Oh, I just got blued on, dude.
Why does it keep doing that?
Why
dude? That's
won't
crazy.
I ever get
I don't want-
glued on?
Yeah, you're not allowed to be blued
You
on.
gotta be cool.
You got criminal.
You have to be cooler. You gotta be a criminal.
Finally,
I'm getting blued on.
So, that was the Forgotten Memories update. Although still flawed, I do believe the devs may be going in the right direction with a lot of things. And hopefully, the 3rd and final floor will have improved on at least some of these flaws I have laid out in this video. I do personally believe that this is the best FNaF game on Roblox, but I really want to see if it will truly start to live up to the potential of that title, because I believe they are right there. But we'll just have to wait and see. In conclusion, 1 like equals 1 year of guaranteed immunity from being blued on. I've been Dags, and until next time, see ya.
Rank shipwrecked characters by how likely they are to be into gooning.